Well, Raila Odinga's strategy to winning the AUC is clearly laid out. We know that on 27th of August this year, Raila had a very successful launch of his bid here in Nairobi when different presidents from the East Africa region came to Nairobi and say that they will support his bid to becoming the next AUC chairperson. The leader of the EAC community right now, Salva Kiir, step on the stage and say that he will personally also support and that the region is backing Raila to be the next AUC chairperson, despite there being other leaders from the larger Eastern African region. They said that Raila Odinga will be their favorite candidate to become the next AUC chairperson. The campaign of Raila Odinga, by the way, headed by Elkanah Odembo, who was the Kenyan ambassador to the United States, a very top diplomat, came out with a strategy where Raila Odinga will be visiting and who he will be engaging in the coming few weeks. And by the way, Raila Odinga will have a launch of his campaign in Addis Ababa on the 8th of November. This is next month. So the time between now and 8th of November, Raila Odinga will be very, very busy engaging with different leaders across the continent to make sure that his bid or his candidacy is accepted and is voted in come February of 2025. And I am just going to lay out the strategy that Raila Odinga or his campaign team has put forward. And as you know, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Kenya is very, very much involved through the PS Korir Sing'oei. And we also have seen Mudavadi, Cliff Mudavadi, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, and also the Cabinet Secretary of Foreign Affairs being very, very much involved in what Raila Odinga is doing and how he is reaching out to presidents and other partners that will help him to win the AUC bid come next year, February 2025. Well, this is the strategy. One, Raila Odinga seems to be targeting organizations in the Africa region. You know that it is very, very important for you to have the backing of an entire organization. These organizations include SADC, include the ECOWAS, include the Northern African states and the Central African states. And that will lead him to attend a very important meeting on October the 31st this week. He will be attending the COMESA meeting that will happen in Bujumbura, Burundi. Now, this COMESA meeting has about 21 states that will be attending. 21 is a huge number. 21 is a very important number for Raila Odinga to win the AUC seat. We know that Raila Odinga has two regions where you can say he has a lead or stronghold over his formidable candidate, that is Mohamed Ali Yusuf of Djibouti. The Eastern African region and the Southern Africa region. Raila has to solidify these two regions so that he can clinch the seat of the AUC chairperson. So the COMESA, that is the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, is the exact copy of the stronghold of Raila Odinga. He not only needs to go to these countries to give out his bid, he needs to go and affirm his support that these presidents of these countries will not even think about voting for someone else. Because if we go back and assess the last time Kenya was running for this bid, by the way, Kenya was here before, just a few years ago, when Amina Mohamed was vying against Musa Faki. Kenya put a very, very formidable fight in that stake. Amina Mohamed took Musa Faki to the 7th round of voting. Well, there were other candidates and they dropped out. That is how the voting is done, that if you are a candidate and you're getting less votes, you drop out. They keep dropping out until you're left with two formidable candidates that can be voted in. So Amina Mohamed took Musa Faki to the 7th round, and that meant that we were in a deadlock. Africa was in a deadlock whether to elect Musa Faki or Amina Mohamed. Now, the only challenge came when in the last round, the SADC region, the Southern African organization, said that we are not going to continue voting for Amina Mohamed. They had their candidate. Well, after their candidate dropped out, they supported Kenya. Yeah, Kenya was the second best for them. They supported Kenya. And it was a deadlock. There was no leader coming out because there were parties supporting Musa Faki and there were very strong parties supporting Amina Mohamed. We only lost because the Southern African organization or leaders say that, well, we are now backing out of this And that meant that Amina Mohammed lost the support of the Southern African countries, and Kenya lost that bid. So that's why you're seeing that it is very important for Raila Odinga to make sure that these Southern African states, many as they are going to support Kenya's bid to become the next AUC chairperson. That is why Raila Odinga will have to go to this COMESA meeting on October 31st to speak to his stronghold, the East and Southern African states, 21 of them. He needs to bank all of them in his bag so that he can now stand ground and go to the battle region of West Africa and North Africa to gain those votes, including Central Africa. Now, on November 5th, remember I said that the launch of his campaign will be in November 8th. In November 5th, Raila will attend the Africa Energy Forum in Cape Town, South Africa, ahead of COP29. So we are seeing him attending another very important summit to speak to world leaders in Southern Africa. Now that is also another strategy that Raila has put forward. He needs to put all this strength to get this formidable force or the formidable support that he needs from Southern Africa. We know that the Southern African President Cyril Ramaphosa is a very good friend to Raila Odinga, but that is not enough. He needs more than just friendship. And we saw the president also working with Raila Odinga in the different summits before this, and went to China, went to the United States, UNGA, went to different places with Raila Odinga, making sure that he introduces Raila Odinga to these presidents, the president of Zimbabwe, the president of Zambia, to just tell them that this is our candidate, that you need to support this candidate. And Southern Africa is clearly covered when we are talking about the support that they can give to Kenya. And that is what makes Raila Odinga to be a very formidable candidate in these elections. Now, those two aside, we know very well that the battleground for this race will be in West Africa. One, West Africa has many countries, and two, West Africa is the home of Francophone countries, which have produced very many AUC leaders. Now, it is very important that Raila Odinga knows that, and it seems he knows that, because in the itinerary, it has been written that Raila Odinga will be visiting 6 capitals in the next 4 weeks. And I'm going to mention these capitals, then we're going to discuss them one by one. He's going to visit Abidjan. Abidjan is the capital of Cote d'Ivoire, that is Ivory Coast, if you like. Then we have Porto Novo, that is the capital of Benin. He's going to visit Dakar, that is the capital of Senegal. He's going to visit Abuja, the capital of Nigeria. Then he's going to visit Algiers, the capital of Nigeria. And lastly, he's going to visit Gaborone, that is the capital of Botswana. If you look at these countries that Raila Odinga is going to visit in the next 4 weeks, you will realize that 4 out of 6 of these countries are West African countries. And that tells you the importance of West Africa in these elections. If Raila Odinga gets the support of the South, the East, and the West, then that's it. That will be it. Raila Odinga will be declared the next AUC chairperson, because that is like 3/4 of Africa, right? And you only need 33 votes. So Raila Odinga is concentrating, has his intention set on West Africa, clearly by the itinerary given by his campaign. He has to visit Cote d'Ivoire, that is Ivory Coast, because of the influence that Ivory Coast has in ECOWAS. As I said earlier, that he is also focusing on organizations. These organizations are very important. Just the same way that he had the support of the East African community, he needs the support of SADC, he needs the support of ECOWAS and the North African states. So currently, we don't know any organization that is supporting the Djiboutian candidate. But we know that Raila Odinga has already banked the support of his home ground, the East African community, and he needs now the support of ECOWAS. That is why Raila Odinga is targeting Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, as a very influential country, as a Francophone country that will perhaps give his views in ECOWAS so that he can have the support of other countries. You know that Cote d'Ivoire will be influential to countries like Togo, countries that border Cote d'Ivoire. This will be very important for Raila Odinga. The next country is Benin, And if you watched my previous video, I spoke about Benin, and I said Benin will not be allowed to vote in this election. So why is Raila Odinga very interested in Benin? It is because Benin will not be allowed to vote because of backsliding of democracy in the country. Now, it is very important for Raila Odinga to visit Benin as a show of support to democracy, as a show of support even to countries that are not allowed to participate in AU activities. So it is very important that Raila Odinga will be visiting Benin to speak about democratic reforms, to speak about the state of the nation, and to speak about how that nation can chart its way back to AU activities with respect to democracy. So that is the fundamental importance of Raila Odinga visiting Benin. And he had a conversation with the ambassador of Benin to Ethiopia when he was in Addis Ababa just last week. So there were preparations to go to Benin and speak about democratic reforms. Benin, as a country that is not allowed to vote, will also be very influential to other West African countries, for example, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, that will not be allowed to participate in AU activities. So Raila Odinga is showing that I am not leaving you behind, despite the fact that you are not allowed to participate in AU activities. There is hope, and we can work and chart your way back into AUC activities. Now, the third country, and very important, is Senegal. Raila Odinga will be visiting Dakar. Senegal is one of the most stable democracies in Africa, and it is very influential also in West Africa. We know that the President Diomaye Faye met briefly with Raila at the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly. We saw President Ruto introducing Diomaye Faye to Raila Odinga. So it will be very important for Raila now to visit Dakar, Senegal, to speak to the president, to lay down his plans as a person who will now champion democracy across Africa, to speak with a country that has held democracy for a very long time and is known as a bastion of democracy in Africa. That will be very important. And also, Senegal is a Francophone country, very influential in ECOWAS, very influential in West Africa. Now, the giants of Africa will also be visited. Raila Odinga will be visiting Abuja, Nigeria. That is the administrative capital of Nigeria, Abuja. And we know that Nigeria is the largest, Africa's largest economy and a very influential partner in West Africa. So if you have the support of Lagos, if you have the support of Abuja, that means that you are at a very high pedestal compared to others. In ECOWAS, you know Nigeria is a powerhouse. So when we are talking about Anglophony West African countries, we have to speak about Ghana, we have to speak about Nigeria. Ghana is a very close ally to Kenya. We've seen the two presidents, Nana Akufo-Addo, that is the outgoing president of Ghana, and we've seen President Ruto being in very close contact. We see even the problems that Ghana is facing are almost similar to the problems that Kenya is facing. I don't think there will be a problem with Ghana supporting Kenya. So they know that perhaps we have Ghana supporting us. Now we need to go to Nigeria so that we can have a conversation on how Nigeria can support Kenya. So that is the reason as to why Raila Odinga has to touch down in Abuja, Nigeria, so that he can solidify that ECOWAS support. Yeah, because if you have Abuja, Dakar, Porto Novo, and Abidjan backing you, I think the entire ECOWAS will be backing you. Those are the heavyweights of West Africa, including Ghana. So if those countries will support Raila Odinga, we can clearly say that West Africa will support Raila Odinga. If at all, he will be able to convince these countries to support his candidacy. Now, Raila Odinga will turn and head down south to Gaborone, Botswana, and meet with the president in Botswana. Now, it will be very important for Raila Odinga to continue to solidify his southern votes. He's not, at this time, he will not go to South Africa. He will go to Gaborone, Botswana, for the reason as to the fact that he will have gone to South Africa twice. Yeah, so there's no need to keep going to one country. So he will be visiting Botswana as a very influential country in SADC, so that he can gain the votes and solidify his support down south. Lastly, and very, very important, Raila Odinga will be visiting Algeria, to speak to the president there about his support. Now, there is a video that I did about Algeria and Morocco and the Moroccan factor that made Amina Mohamed not to win the AUC chairperson against Moussa Faki. Morocco took it upon itself to decampaign Amina Mohamed at that time. But why am I speaking about Morocco and Algeria? Just go and search that video and you'll understand the difference between Morocco and Algeria and where the scuffle came in between those two countries and why they decampaigned Amina Mohamed. So in this one, I'm just going to speak about the importance of Algeria. Algeria is a very important country because Kenya is now in very close relations with Morocco. So Kenya will not face the Moroccan factor this time because right now, President Ruto is very close to Morocco. In fact, this fertilizer program that we have here in the country, the fertilizer comes from Morocco. So we have a very close relations with Morocco right now, and we don't foresee Morocco decampaigning Raila Odinga the same way they decampaigned Amina Mohamed in her bid. So if Morocco is in close relations with you, you really need to go and speak with Algeria. And that is why Raila Odinga has to touch down in Algiers. Those two countries, Morocco and Algeria, really don't get along. Yeah. And that is because of the Sahrawi state. So Raila Odinga has to go and speak with Algeria so that Algeria doesn't turn out to become a Moroccan factor this time. So Algeria has the power, it has the might, it is a powerhouse in the Northern African states. So that is why Raila Odinga has to make sure that he has gone to Algeria and have a conversation with the president there and assure the president there that the support that Kenya now has with Morocco will not be a threat to Algeria and will not be a threat to the Sahrawi state. Well, that does it. That is the strategy that Raila has put forward. He is targeting organizations, established organizations in Africa. Talk about COMESA, talk about the EAC, SADC, ECOWAS, and the Northern African state. He's also targeting specific heavyweight countries in West Africa. He knows that if he gets the support of these influential countries, he will get the support of these countries that will be influenced by the support of the heavyweights. So he's targeting countries like Nigeria, he's targeting countries like Senegal, Ivory Coast, and Algeria so that he can get the support of these heavyweights. And then he hopes that now these neighboring or smaller countries will in turn support his bid to become the next AUC chairperson.